Well, hello there. How's it going? Welcome to Dominion 6. My name's Mew. This time around, I'm going to be playing a multiplayer game of Dominion 6 set in the Middle Age, and I'll be playing as Katiz. This video will be the intro for the Katiz series, and in this video I'll just talk a little bit about the nation, and then I'll go over the god that I made, the scales that I chose, and the bless that I went with. And then the next video going up in this series will be turn 1 to 3. So if you just want to see the gameplay, you can skip this and wait for that one. But if you do want to know about my god, then stick around. We'll go over it in a second. There should be 2 videos going up each week in this series, and each video will be about 3 turns long, give or take. Depends how long the turns themselves get. But in general, I try to keep the videos on the shorter side. I aim for 25 minutes. Sometimes I'll go a bit longer though. Sometimes they might even be a bit shorter. But a regular schedule is my main goal. I'll put a link to the series playlist in the description under the video. I'll also link to whatever map generator we use and whatever mods we use if there are any. I can't remember if this game is just going to use the default map generator or not, and I don't think it has any mods. It does have a setting change. Indies are independent strength 3 instead of 4, so they're slightly weaker. But besides that, I think it might just be a pretty vanilla game, to be honest. It's also, I think, my first Middle Age game of Dominion 6 on the channel. I think all my other games have been Early Age so far, right? Bit different, I suppose. Anyway, that's it for the pre-intro intro. So I think we've covered everything there. So let's go take a look at Katiz. And here we are, Katiz, Miasma. So Katiz are the lizard nation. They make their home in a pretty nasty swamp. I'm not sure if this is the same for all eras, but in Middle Age, their dominion is pretty unpleasant for most people. And also be pretty unpleasant for us as well. But let's just go through things first of all. So national features, race, thick hide, cold-blooded, poison resistance, prefers heat scale +2. Yeah, not very thick hides, to be honest. I think these guys have a base protection of 5. Okay, it's better than I thought. Some of them are a bit lower, I think. These guys are base protection 2. The Sobex, I believe, are base protection 8, so a bit better. What about you guys? Base protection 9 even. So yeah, some of them have thick hides. Cold-blooded, poison resistant, prefers heat scales. Yeah, all of our units are cold-blooded. They all have a bit of poison resistance as well. Not as much as you might think. The Sobex, okay, they're on 10, that's quite nice, but the little guys are mostly 5, I think. All your mages are 5, I believe. Yeah. So they can actually take some poison damage. 5 isn't a huge amount of poison resistance. Still, they're very much the poison nation. Military infantry, slave warriors, sacred serpents. I don't really use those very much. Large Sobek warriors and sacred guards. Yeah, we have a priest that can train sacred serpents out of temples. So if you have one of these priests in all of your temples, or each of your temples, you can technically free spawn serpents if you want to. I don't think they're very good units though, so that feature doesn't really interest me very much. The sacred serpents are standard bearers though, so give a squad a bit of extra morale. And the Sobek guys are sick. These are cap only, unfortunately, but the Sobek lizards are really what carries the nation, I think. Magic is death, nature, water, and some astral. Yep. This is very much a death, nature, water nation. Priests are powerful, that's kind of cool. We have an H3 we can recruit out of every 4, I think. Yeah. Maybe? I'm not sure. Yeah, out of every 4. That's kind of cool. It makes it very easy to bless our troops, although I don't really think this is a blessed nation. Our only sacred is basically these guys. We don't even... Oh no, we also have... Yeah, these guys as well. Okay, swamp gods. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could run this as a blessed nation, right? They're not too bad. Swamp guards. Do they only come... Oh, they're also cap only. Okay. So you got cap only sacreds. I mean, really, you want the Sobek sacred guards, right? And then the Sobeks. You probably don't want a big bless. We don't even really have any big sacred mages either. Our main mage is the Marsh Master, who isn't sacred. Shamans are sacred, I guess, but that's about it. But yeah, powerful priests is always nice. Dominion, this is a really interesting one for Katiz. So our Dominion transforms all of your provinces into swamps very gradually, which is cool. It increases your own income. So I believe, I could be wrong about this, I believe for every white candle you have in a province, you get 1% increased income, which is very nice. It reduces income for everyone else, and I think that's much worse. I think for every dark candle of Katizian Dominion, you lose 5% of your income. I could be wrong about that. But I think that the penalty for enemies is much worse than the bonus or much more severe than the bonus you get for yourself. But either way, you know, we scale out our income, which is nice, and we also hurt people with our Dominion. And then our Dominion also diseases non-cold-blooded units. So unless you are cold-blooded or sacred, in our case, you get diseased in our Dominion. I don't know what the odds are for that happening. It's not super high, but it's high enough to be annoying. It's also kind of a double-edged sword because, yeah, it makes invading into Katiz kind of annoying if you aren't cold-blooded. Your troops will get diseased, so enemies invading us will get diseased as they walk through our lands. But it does also mean that if we recruit anything that's non-cold-blooded and non-sacred, then it will also get diseased. So if we find any cool independent mages that aren't sacred, our Dominion will disease them. Same for, like, if you get a throne that has a nice mage, probably not going to be cold-blooded, so probably going to get diseased. Same for summons as well. A lot of stuff that you could summon with nature magic is going to get diseased in our Dominion, animals and stuff like that. So yeah. It would be really nice if we could transform our Marsh Masters later in the game, since they're all nature mages who are pretty expensive actually. They're going to lead to quite a bit of upkeep. But of course, if you transform into something, you might transform into something that isn't cold-blooded, and then you get diseased. So, yeah, it's a cool feature, and it does mean you're a bit safer because people are going to be a bit cautious about invading you. But it does also have its downsides too. Scales and Blessers, we get +1 heat limit on our scales, and buildings are standard forts. So some interesting national features there. I'll look through all of the commanders and units now then. I will also just mention briefly though, I did stream on Twitch some expansion testing with Katiz, and the VOD from that experiment is up on my VODs channel, so if you do want to just watch me screwing around with Katiz for a few hours, testing expansion and looking at units and things, I'll put a link to that in the description. Otherwise though, in brief, let's just look through things. So we have a Taskmaster commander, which is pretty nice because we do have some slave units, so that just gives these guys some morale. And then we have 2 different types of regular commander as well, who, and they're not too expensive, +1 for 3 on the Lizard Lord, which is nice. So 3 types of commander, 3 types of priest as well. We have the Hero Duel, who are extremely cheap, H1s, and walk around putting up temples for us. We have the H2 High Priest of Katiz, who, as mentioned, are also temple trainers, so they can produce a bunch of sacred serpents for you. And then we also have the H3 Lizard King. 4 rec points and 340 gold, but still. Yeah, lots of priests out of all of our forts. And then, surprisingly limited amount of mages. You can get lizard shamans who are, I think, identical to the independent lizards you can find sometimes. Although internally they have a different monster number, but besides that, I'm pretty sure they're the same, right? So, S1, N1, great communion slaves. In the old days, you could make one of these a communion master, and then put up personal regen and stuff, and then become a communion slave. You can't do that anymore. You can't overwrite communion master, which is a bit strange. But still, you can just leave it as the communion master, I suppose. But lizards are great communion slaves because they have 13 hit points, which I believe means that they get 2 points of regen per turn. I could be wrong about that, actually. I don't know. Now that I say it out loud, it sounds wrong. I thought that was why they were such good communion slaves, because they regenerate 2 hit points per round. Maybe I'm thinking of when they're enlarged or something? I don't know. Possibly. They are nature mages. I don't know. Either way, 2 rec points, 125 gold. It gets you a nice, astral nature mage. I feel like S1, N1 doesn't do much on its own, is the thing. So yeah, they really do function best in communion. They can always just do little buffs on people though. This guy can cast Body Ethereal and Bark Skin on people, so that's always nice. Besides that, they have 10 leadership, 30 magic leadership, and no undead leadership. I think we struggle a bit to lead units around on this nation if we're just recruiting mages. We do have great leaders that we can recruit. Also, the High Priest is a great leader as well, +2 for 4. So tons of leadership on these guys. Not so much the others. I think these are 0, yeah. But the mages are a bit awkward to lead around stuff with. Our other mage is the Marsh Master. So what's interesting about these 2 mages is we can recruit these anywhere. It's the Lizards and the Marsh Masters. We don't have like a cap-only mage, unless you count the Empoisoner, but I don't. So these can be recruited anywhere. They're very expensive at 330 gold, but they're only 2 rec points. But you could get a Marsh Master out of every fort every turn if your income's good enough. And Marsh Masters are incredible mages. Water 1, D2, N2. So D2 by default just means that they can Skelly spam, which is great. And N2 means they can do a bunch of nature buffs as well. And they get a bunch of nice picks too. The astral ones you could plug into communions with the lizards as slaves, which is pretty cool. This combo also means that they can easily put up all of the nice enchantment, battlefield enchantments that you get in the mid-game, so very easy for these guys to put up Foul Vapors, Relief, Rigor Mortis, Darkness, and Life After Death as well, I suppose. And then just chuck out a bunch of skeletons, and that's pretty much what Katiz does through the mid-game, is you just march at people with big stacks that just put up Foul Vapors and Rigor Mortis, and it's very hard to respond to early if you haven't been planning to. I think they're one of the best sort of workhorse mages in the game. They do have some limitations. It is a bit unfortunate that we want to get these out of every fort, but they don't have any leadership. But I guess the only things we really want to be leading around anyway are Sobex, to be honest. The rest of the stuff can hopefully just be undead junk we summon. That would be nice. Their stats are, mediocre. 11 hit points, not much to say. They have full slots. They can hold a Thistle Mace or a Skull Staff, or they can even forge all of the boosters, right? They can forge Skull Staves, they can forge Thistle Maces. The Astral ones can forge Moonvine Bracelets. They can't easily forge Skullface, but then who can? So yeah, all around, Marsh Masters are pretty great mages. But it's not like you really need to evaluate them too hard anyway, because, well, you don't have any other choices. You either recruit these or you recruit lizards, so what are you really going to do? The big issue with these guys, I think, is later on as the game goes on, the upkeep is going to be a problem, because they are very expensive, they all have very high upkeep, they're not sacred, so you don't get the discount on them. You can't transform them because they'll get diseased in your dominion. I think maybe you could turn into a Lich or something, but that's like 40 death gems. So, I don't know. I think it's a good... you do kind of need scales on this nation anyway, don't you? Because you want to take advantage of the fact that, your income is going to get scaled by your dominion. So your income's going to hopefully be quite good, but these guys are going to be an expense anyway. Still, if we can make it to late game, you can build these guys gradually up into getting up, Gift of Health and Tartarian Gate or something, I suppose, but I don't know, it depends how much research you get done, and if you last that long. And also how much death income you end up with, because you'd have to do some empowering if you don't have a death pretender. But anyway, yeah, those are your options for mages. Out of the cap, we also get Sobek Generals, who are just Sobek versions of Commanders, basically. They're also +1 for 3. They are sacred and they're also Taskmasters, so they can lead units and slaves, but they have all the leadership and on the undead leadership. It's kind of the issue with these guys is you don't have anyone that can do everything. You either have mundane leadership or undead leadership, and nothing that does both really. And the other cap only mage is the Empoisoner. So these are kind of interesting. They're assassins, so in addition to doing a little bit of research, they are stealthy, very stealthy actually at 55, and assassins. Death Nature are great paths on assassins because you can give them a nature gem and they can cast Swarm when they assassinate, which is pretty brutal for practically... Oh no, you can't now, can you? It got changed in Dominion 6. It's an N2 spell now. Ah. I'm pretty sure Swarm is N2 now. I guess you just give them death gems then instead and they cast a lot of skeletons, which is also pretty good in assassinations, right? And they come with a poison sling, which is probably quite annoying in assassinations as well, since it does a cloud of poison. We can try out using some of these guys as assassins. I guess since you can get Marshmasters out of every fort, you don't need to get Marshmasters in your cap, do you? So you could just dedicate your cap recruitment turns to getting out in poisoners and being really annoying. But if you wanted to. You could probably try using them to assassin expand as well, but I don't really like doing that, to be honest. But there we go. So not much to say about the commanders really, because you don't, I mean, they're very, very kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I mean, if you want priests, you have every type of priest. If you want mages, you have basically one mage, and then a cheaper mage as well. And that's it. You don't really have any other choices to make, so I like that. Sounds like a nice, simple nation, you know? Even though there is a lot going on, and a lot you can do as well with the paths that they have. So yeah, solid and simple. I like it. As for units, as I said, I've got a big VOD where I look through the units and try to expand with different compositions of armies, so I'll just go through these in brief, but militia, don't want to use these. Heavy infantry, probably don't want to use these. I think if I'm going to be recruiting infantry units... Oh, actually, yeah, it is the heavy infantry that I liked recruiting. But there's just been a patch yesterday, because I'm recruiting this... Whenever I recruit intro videos, I always make it sound like I'm recording it before the game starts, but the game is actually in progress. So it's currently the 6th of December, even though this game started in like October or something. So there's just been a patch that added medium infantry. When the game started, I didn't have these units though, so the units I like to expand with are the heavy infantry. They're pretty decent. We've also got city guards who are pretty similar, but they have a castle defense bonus, so that's quite nice. And light infantry have a javelin. Yeah, I don't really like most of the Cartesian units. I also don't really expand very well with them, to be honest. I don't like the starting army. But of these basic units, I like the heavy infantry the best, just because they hold up the best, and they last the longest. And they can have the most impact during the expansion phase of the game, to be honest. 16 protection isn't bad for such a cheap unit. And they've got shields as well, so they don't mind... Shields and helmets, so they don't mind arrow fire either. The other units I don't really use at all. Same for the yellow units, who are the slave lizards. Runners I think are pretty cool, because they're so cheap. You're really only limited on gold, and a few rec points, I guess. And these are really fast units. You can stick these in you can script these as well. They're not like undisciplined or anything. They look like they might be. I guess they're holding a weapon and whatever. But you can script these guys, stick them in a corner on attack rear, and they're one of your only fast units. One of the problems this nation has is that all of the units are slow, both in terms of map move and combat speed, and all of your terrain's going to turn into swamps, so that's going to make map move worse as well. Although these guys do have swamp survival, so I guess not. But yeah, they're all pretty slow. Runners are not, though. So when you have battles, even if you win, a lot of enemy units will just escape, because you're so slow you can't like chase them down. But runners can. I think it would be nice to just always have some runners in your armies, and have them in blocks on attack rear. Or hold an attack rear. So you can always like just chase down things if you win. So they're kind of cool. The other slave units, not as much. You'd think they'd be pretty good. I mean, these have average stats and 2 attacks. They hit pretty hard as well. 20 damage with a trident. It's not no joke, but the problem is they have no shield and no helmet, so whenever you go up against any kind of ranged projectile, these things just die, which is a bit sad. But if you're up against someone who isn't using any ranged attacks, you could probably mass these and they'd be a lot better. And they're pretty killy, I think. But yeah, mostly I just rely on the heavy infantry. The Falchineer should also be pretty good, I think. 15 protection and 2 attacks per round, 2 18 damage slashing attacks. But, again, no shield. They do have helmets at least. I guess it depends what you're up against, right? For me personally, I basically just recruit a few heavy infantry when I can during expansion phase. And then, as soon as you can, you switch to Sobex. Because the Sobex are sick. As for the rest of the units, not so sure. We do also have cap-only slingers, who are slingers who fire poison clouds. It's hard to get out lots of these every turn, so you tend to end up with small numbers of them, which is not great. I think you need quite a few of these before they start to make a big impact. So in general, I try to recruit a few of these if I can as a sort of luxury, but I don't really rate them too highly otherwise. But when you do have a big block of them, if you get up to like a nice squad of 30, just laying down all these poison clouds with poison things, it is kind of cool. It's especially useful, I think, when things get stuck a lot. So during fort storms and things, or just big battles where you have 2 front lines that are holding up for a while, when they can just like pound massive clouds of poison down in one spot for a while, that's when they really shine, I think. Otherwise, though, I don't think they're too important. Soviet warriors are sick. These are not sacred or anything, so they're only limited by, well, resources usually. Get as many of these as you can. 20 protection with 2 attacks per round that are both really hard-hitting slashing weapons. Incredible units. These are really good with buffs as well. Buff their protection even higher with some bark skin. Give them some body ethereal. They're great units. They're exactly size 5, which means you can get 2 of them on a square. The downside of the bigger Sobex is that they are size 6, so you can't really get anything else on a square except one Sobek. You need smaller stuff to help fill out the square with these guys. So I think it's always worth recruiting some of the smaller units. Although later on, you'll be filling up the square with skeletons anyway, with your mages doing Horde of Skeletons, so it doesn't matter too much. But the Sobex Sacred Gods are incredible units. They'll last for ages, they'll survive for a very long time. 21 on protection, with 37 hit points, and they're sacred. You can put a silly bless on them if you want. The halberd hits shockingly hard. There's a length 4 weapon hitting for 30 damage. So this thing is going to chop up people pretty easily. And then they get the bite on top of that as well. You are limited to 2 of these per turn. And what that means is you should recruit 2 of these every turn, because it's by far the best unit you can get. And I love them. They're my friends, and I love them very much. Sobex Sacred Gods. The other unit is this guy, who I don't think I even remembered existed, to be honest. But he does. And there he is. He's a slightly better heavy infantry that you can bless. So, okay. I think... Well, I don't know. I didn't really take much for bless on my gods, so maybe they're less interesting to me for that reason. But maybe you could do something with these guys if you had a nice bless on them. I don't know. But there's my opinion on the units. Recruit as many Sobex as you can. Recruit as many Marshmasters as you can. Research enchantment. There's my guide to Katirs. And I hope it serves you well. We also have some sites here. We get death gems, nature gems, and water gems. And also the empoisoner guys, yeah. Nice stuff. There's Katirs. Let's go and take a look at the god I made, shall we? Okay, so here is the god I went with. This is very different from what the types of gods I usually run. So where to start? I'll start with the inspiration for this god. See, a long time ago, I was in a game. I don't remember which game it was. I don't remember if it was Dominions 4 or 5. But I do remember one of my neighbors was a Katirs. Don't even remember what era it was. But that Katirs had some type of Nita and magic skills. And all they did for like the first 20 turns of the game was just turtle and research. And when I checked the graphs, they had such a shocking research lead over everybody else in the game It was by far the biggest research lead I've ever seen in my life, because that was all they did was just move every mage to their cap, and then because the Natl comes with Inspiring Researcher, it was just buffing the research, and then on top of that they also had magic skills. And I thought, you know what, that sounds cool. I want to try and do that as well, because I'm not very good at doing research, and it would be cool to do a game where I'm good at research. So that is the entire theme of this god. It's just the Natl of the Moon is a good researcher. They're an adept researcher, and they give everybody in the same province Inspiring Researcher. So lots of research, basically. And then they also let you take an extra magic skill limit, so we can get Magic 3 on our scales. This guy is dormant, so by the end of the first year he will wake up, and then he will start buffing our researches, and then we just do lots of research. That's it. That's all the thought process that was behind this. There is another nice little piece of synergy as well, which is that I do have Misfortune 1, and the Natl is also a fortune teller, so it works quite nicely there. Besides that, what is there to say, really? First things first, we want to have high Dominion, because, as we just saw, Dominion is quite important to us. It's a defensive measure, it's a hostile attack measure, it also boosts all of our income. So we want to get our Dominion skills as high as possible in as many provinces as possible. Ideally, every single province we own will be 10 white candles, which will buff all of our income by 10%. Will it get that high everywhere? Probably not, but you want to aim for that. So yeah, that's the goal with high Dominion. I'm not sure how the transform lands into swamps thing works, but I'm sure that having high Dominion can't hurt. So yeah, high Dominion I think is a must for this nation. By the same measure, I think you also want to have pretty good income skills as well, because we're scaling our income, right? So it kind of makes sense that you want to get your income nice and high to keep pushing it even further. So we got high Dominion, we got really good income scales. If I could have got a point of growth as well, I would have, but I really wanted the Magic 3, and I didn't want to drop our Misfortune too much. You could go Misfortune 2 and then put in a point of growth, but I'm quite happy with this. I think it's fine. And that's it, really. There aren't any other considerations to talk about for the scales and things. Took a Natl for the research. These scales kind of explain themselves. That just leaves magic and bless and stuff, and the Natl comes with astral, so just stuck a few more points into that. Took a magic weapon bless. There's not really much else you can get. Stuff like arcane finesse. Can I right click that? No. So this is penetration, which can be useful but yeah, the issue is our best mages aren't sacred, so it doesn't really matter. Same for Farcaster. I don't think that would matter. It's basically lizards, right? I mean, who cares? Magic resistance. I mean, that might be useful on the Sobex, I guess, but I don't know. And arcane command. Again, that might be kind of useful, I guess, on the lizards, but I mean, what else do you do with the points? I feel like the only bless that makes sense is magic weapons here. And that is actually kind of nice, because now the Sobogs with their giant halberd and bite attack, these will be magic halberd and bite attacks, so that helps us deal with ethereal and mistform and stuff. So yeah, everything kind of falls into place like that. Not much else to say, really. I'm not sure if... Is this the kind of god you would make with Katiz? I feel like whenever I see a Katiz player, they always have the laser dog, right? This guy? This is like the go-to Katiz god, but I'm not sure what era that is. Maybe that's EA Katiz or something. But that would suggest that Katiz wants an expander. But I don't feel like Katiz needs an expander, to be honest. Our income is so good that we should, you know, in theory, be able to buy like every good mercenary company that comes up. Especially since The units that we recruit are going to be locked on resources mainly. We'll just get 2 of these guys. And then, I guess the Sobeks are kind of expensive, but if we start with heavy infantry, yeah, we should have tons of gold left over. We just get all the mercenaries to help expand, and that'll be fine. And once we reach the point where we're recruiting like tons of Sobek each turn, expansion is easy, so I think it's fine to have a dormant god. I think it's fine to not have a big blast. Just go scales, get all the mercenaries, and then we see if the research thing pays off. It might. We'll see. I'm not very good at researching, so I think it'll be interesting, you know. New approach to the game. We'll see how it goes. Now, full disclosure, well, second full disclosure. The first full disclosure is, yeah, like I said, this game is actually already in progress, so... I'm not actually recording this before the game starts. But second full disclosure is, this is also the second time I've tried to play MA Catiz. If you count Dominions 5, it's the 3rd time. And Catiz is cursed for me. It always goes horribly. So we shouldn't have high hopes for this game. That's what I'm telling you. Besides that, not much else to say. I think I mentioned once already, but I'll mention it again. This game has one small gimmick, which is that the independent strength is 1 point lower. So independents are slightly easier. Besides that, I don't think it's running any mods or any interesting map generator, so it's all just vanilla. So with that, I'll leave things there. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you found it interesting, funny, and informative. And the next video going up in this series will be Turn 1 to 3, which won't be today, it'll be a few days from now. Yeah, this game is... I mean, like I said, it's December now. Those of you who've played a lot of multiplayer Dominions will know that online games of Dominions do tend to slow down a bit over December because, you know, people are taking breaks for the holidays, then you got, you know, Christmas and then New Year, and, you know, sometimes games do slow down. I would like to keep the videos behind the game by at least 30 turns. But if the game does slow down, then that means the videos might also slow down over Christmas, but hopefully it's not too bad. Besides that, thanks for watching, wish me luck, and let me know in the comments what you think of my Catiz build. This is one of the first times when I actually truly came up with this god on my own. So, you know, for better or for worse. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.